ton of things to talk about this week, including a lot of big news. We go for digital diplomas, twins Crowdtrack, fully remote, aged iconic covers, GoyaGate, Help Yourself Hulu, Obamacast, InstaReel, retailer mask mandates, Twitter bit scammed, Obstructionist Apple, and you'll want to wait around for the last part of the podcast for COVID small business closures data. But we started off with the best story of the week, and BL always has that honors. BL, what was the best story of the week?
Well, I think this was the worst story of the week, but it's definitely the biggest, and that was the catastrophic Twitter hack yesterday. If you haven't heard about it, Bill Gates, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Jeff Bezos, Kanye West, Elon Musk, and a ton of other celebrities and politicians were hacked in a Bitcoin scheme on Wednesday. And it was a brazen attack that the amazing part about it, this is from, I have information from Casey Newton from Twitter and from the New York Times. So there are a lot of reporters involved here, Shira Frankel, Nathaniel Popper, Kate Conger, David Sanger, and Casey Newton. And so it was one of the most widespread and confusing hacks that Twitter has ever seen. And the tweets were promoting a Bitcoin scam that apparently earned a lot of money for its creator. And this is the amazing thing about it, because, you know, the same way that the princes who are, you know, wanting to send you an inheritance from Africa, that people give them their bank account information. Apparently, they got hundreds of thousands of dollars as part of this scheme. So how it happened or to what extent Twitter's systems were compromised, they don't know that yet. Twitter's investigating. It's speculated that there was somebody inside Twitter who may have been involved. I was not targeted, but because I have a verified account, I suddenly couldn't tweet. And I was getting a message saying that appears to be spam or automatically generated. And I tried to tweet, and then it popped up and it said, "Don't worry, we'll try again." And so I tried again. I got that same message, "This is spam." And of course it wasn't. So I was like, what is going on here? So Casey Newton wrote, and I think he was a little hysterical. Within the first hours of the attack, people were duped into sending more than $118,000 to the hackers. It also seems possible that a great number of sensitive direct messages could have been accessed by the attackers. Of even greater concern, though, is the speed and the scale at which the attack unfolded and the national security concerns that it raises, and those are profound. And he said, I can only worry about how, with a presidential election now less than 4 months away, it might be realized further. So the 359,000 verified accounts were all stopped. And Twitter, Casey Newton said, Twitter's lame and slow response makes you wonder what contingencies they have in place for this type of thing. And, you know, if it's taken over by greedy Bitcoin con artists, what about state level actors or psychopaths? And he said, and I have to agree, after this, it was no longer unthinkable, if it ever really was, that someone could take over the account of a world leader and attempt to start a nuclear war. And it seems hardly like hyperbole to suggest that our world could hang in the balance. You know, that's a little bit over the top, but it's all pretty scary stuff. And we have an election coming up. And what are they going to do about it? More to come, you know?
There's a lot to discuss here. So Josephine Wolf at Slate has a nice rundown of kind of, you know, what the possible avenues of attack were. And I mean, they're fairly obvious to anybody who thinks about it, really. It's social engineering. So, you know, convincing somebody at Twitter that you are calling on behalf of Bill Gates, for example, and he got locked out of his account, and getting some information to get you access to the internal workings of Twitter, the technological internal.
Well, you could have hacked his phone, I guess.
Yeah. So that's one. I mean, that happens all the time. Social engineering is one of the weakest links in the security atmosphere. That's how people often get hacked, is social engineering. And then there's the other more nefarious part, is that it's an inside job and somebody bribed somebody at Twitter to give them access, which is harder for Twitter to protect against. Social engineering is more educational. It's more, you step up your efforts and tell people how they can be socially engineered, and they're more capable of defending against it. If you got somebody who's going to take money and compromise your system, that's harder to protect against. And then the third, more concerning one, is they just found a way to hack in.
Well, that's what it appeared to be. What they were saying now is that it appeared to be that these people just wanted money. But equally so, what also came out today was that Russians are hacking the pharmaceutical companies, trying to steal the vaccines. So, because Trump has already made it quite clear that we're not sharing them with anybody. We're buying it all. So, hacking is happening all over the place, and how is it going to stop before the election?
Yeah, well, it's not going to stop before the election. I mean, hacking has been happening. Hacking has been happening since the advent of the internet. I mean, it's the stakes have just gotten a hell of a lot bigger.
Oh, they certainly have. I mean, it used to be, Bill Gates is sharing his fortune, or Nordstrom will give you their chocolate chip cookie recipe, but this is serious stuff.
So what struck me, putting my political hat on, what struck me is that everybody who was hacked appeared to be Democrats, with the possible exception of Kanye West, although he just dropped his bid to challenge Trump or whatever the hell
whatever
that was.
He was doing.
Maybe that was a revenge attack on Kanye, but everybody else, are not associated with conservatives. They're more closely associated with liberals, even if it's unfair to them. But most of them, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, so that struck me.
It took a long time for anything to stop it. It was hours.
Yeah.
I mean, what could have
so the screenshots were posted of the dashboard that was accessed. So obviously somebody had access to that internal tool to change accounts and everything, and get access to people's accounts and change things. So I don't know where those screenshots came from, but somebody posted.
Yeah, well, you do have to wonder. So
anyway, so BL,
news?
You threw me a curveball.
What's that?
You threw me a curveball by starting out with the worst story of the week.
Well, it's the biggest.
So I'm like, it was the biggest, but I wasn't expecting. So, since you threw me that curveball, I'll throw you another one with a baseball one. Okay. And this is baseball has finally come back. I was finally able to watch some live baseball this week. It was glorious.
Until they all get sick.
Well, that's entirely possible, and probably football is the same way. But this is so last week, Thursday. Today's Thursday, Wednesday. I don't know. The days run together.
It's Thursday today. Are they in Florida? Where are they?
No, they were playing at Target Field. So the Twins had an intra-squad scrimmage. So they played against one another, and they broadcast it on our local Fox Sports North affiliate. So their broadcast partner, they broadcasted on it. And there's some details from Star Tribune's Phil Miller, who covered the story. But I watched it live, and it was so fantastic to finally have some live sports to follow. Baseball, summer, it has to have baseball. Yeah. And so what they did was, so obviously Target Field is where they play in Minneapolis, and obviously no fans or anything. So they had the public address system pipe in crowd noise for the broadcast. And there was music clips between innings and before at bats. The scoreboards were working, so they had game stats on the scoreboard. Each player was introduced from the PA announcer as they walked to the plate.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. There's a quote from Twins manager Rocco Baldelli. By the way, Rocco Baldelli is such a baseball name. It's just it's literate. Baseball is a literary sport, and Rocco Baldelli, it could only be a baseball manager.
Really?
So the quote says, "Silence is definitely what we were going to hope to avoid. That's when you really start observing and thinking really odd things. You're not used to being on ball fields with a noiseless environment. All of the sounds and everything it's definitely going to increase our intensity and probably help the quality of the play itself." I totally agree. The players themselves are used to the sound of crowds and everything, so making it more normal for them makes a lot of sense. But also, as I was watching the broadcast, I'm like, this would be really weird if there wasn't sound crowd. It's like, it's like a laugh track. I remember when COVID came and everybody started broadcasting from their homes, Bill Maher did his first episode without, being in the studio. And I don't think at that time he had a laugh track. And it was just weird listening to it. It was like once he added the laugh track, and he did if you don't watch Bill Maher, he did it very conspicuously. So the clips of there's clips of 50s era audiences laughing at his jokes. So it's just obviously a contrived thing. But the fact that there is that cue.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I watch Colbert, and he's just sitting there and talking, and he tells a joke, and he doesn't know if anybody thought it was funny or not.
Yeah.
And he turns around and asks his wife,
exactly.
"Was that good?"
Yeah.
What'd you think?
So I thought they did a really good job with the broadcast. It was so fantastic to watch baseball again. Major League Baseball is distributing iPads to all of the teams with a fake noise program. So apparently it's a noise generator of some sort. And they're going to encourage the teams to experiment with game atmosphere. There's a background buzz that gets amped up. So I heard this in the broadcast too. The background buzz of just the crowd in the background that you always hear gets amped up to actual cheering when there's a big hit or great defense or something happens in the game.
It's automatic that happens?
So I don't know if it's automatic or I think it's somebody's controlling it.
And when do they use the iPads? They can't play with them.
Well, I don't know if they're actually using the iPads now or if they're just going to be able to have that ability. But when the Twins were playing, so there's Nelson Cruz, who's a superstar in Major League Baseball. He's one of the Twins players. He's a slugger. He hits home runs all the time, and everybody knows who he is. So when he hit a home run, the crowd noise just amped up to yeah, standing ovation, blah, blah, blah. And then there was a new guy who he's in the farm system. He has never breached the major leagues yet. He's still a rookie or less than a rookie. He hit a home run and the crowd noise was not nearly as so it's like
That's
they took
funny.
into effect that people didn't recognize who that player was. So Chris Isles is in charge of game day experience at Target Field. There's a quote in this that says there are various reactions from the crowd, from approval, excitement to displeasure to, I don't want to call it full-on jeering, but some stuff is clearly meant to be directed towards the opposing team. And that's the other thing I was worrying about. So, when a pitcher throws to first base to keep a runner on, the crowd often says, "Oh, yeah, right." I wanted to hear that. And then if they're playing at Yankee Stadium, then there should be full-on cheering because Yankees fans are the worst.
Well, we have a squirrel. I mean, many times, I don't know if the squirrel.
Oh, no, I remember the squirrel.
Yeah.
That was during a Twins game, too.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So I just...
But they don't have the Jumbotron. You can't see the people on the Jumbotron.
It was a fascinating run through of what this season. I think there's going to be infections and stuff, and I think the season's going to get derailed. That's the cynic in me. But they did a fantastic job of approximating what the experience would be like. And so,
It's a valiant effort under any circumstance.
It was very good. We'll put I actually have clips from the home runs, so you can hear the difference between the crowd noises between the two players I was talking about. So we'll keep those in the show notes. I didn't hear there's some of the things I didn't hear, so I'd love to. I appreciate the crowd noise. As I said before, I used to play some video games. I played baseball video games, and one of the best things about MLB baseball is the sounds of the crowd, and you can hear the vendors in the crowd.
Get
cold beer here, cold beer. It's great because it's perfect. It's exactly like what you hear at the stadium. But what I didn't hear was everybody clap your hands.
Right.
Which you hear all the time at Target Field, but obviously there's no fans, so that would be weird.
Yeah, that would.
The scrimmage only lasted 7 innings, so there's no 7th inning stretch. But apparently they're going to play the Star Spangled Banner before games, and I imagine they're going to play.
And the wave?
Take me out to the
what
ballpark.
About the wave?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. But anyway.
Different kind of news.
Yeah.
Big tech has been stepping up. Last week you talked about what Microsoft is doing on LinkedIn for job creation and helping people to train for jobs. And this week Google announced their program. And basically Google's going to offer career courses that it says are the equivalent of a 4-year college degree. They're going to give 100,000 scholarships and grants. But even if you don't get a scholarship or a grant, the courses are on Coursera and they're $49. And they are going to have certificates that will help Americans get high-paying jobs, they claim, in growth fields. They claim that their 6-month course is the equivalent of a 4-year college degree. The 100,000 scholarships will be need-based, and they consider their career certificates to be all that you need for a job. $10 million in job training grants for communities across America, working with partners like the YMCA, Empower, and JFF. The certificates are in data analytics, project management, and user experience design. It's an expansion of their IT certificate employer consortium, which includes over 50 employers like Walmart, Hulu, Sprint, and of course Google. Hundreds of apprenticeship opportunities at Google will be made available for people who finish the programs. The certification will start in the fall, and the certificates build on an established partnership that they already have with 100 community colleges. They claim that learners will have access to resources to facilitate their job search. And Google does have one of the best online job search engines already. And they will provide interview preparation. So once you complete the program, you can opt in to share your information directly with employers who are hiring for jobs in these fields. And Google will make the connections. So the announcement comes at the same time that there's historically high unemployment. And according to most recent data, 33 million people are collecting unemployment benefits as of June 20th, regardless of what may be coming out of the White House, 5 times the previous high of 6.6 million during the Great Recession. So things are pretty bad here in America, and Google and LinkedIn are doing their part. And, you know, say what you want about their monopoly on search and advertising and whatever is going on. I'm waiting for Facebook to do something that sounds as good.
Yeah, that's great. It's did I read somewhere that Google is going to treat like if you pass these as treat it like a diploma?
Yeah, they're saying they feel that it's the equivalent of a 4-year college degree.
Cool.
And you do that
I mean,
6
$49 is not a lot to. I mean, if you're buying it from Coursera, that's a drop in the bucket compared to, yeah. So very good. But I mean, the cynic in me says, and of course I have to voice my cynicism occasionally, as you well know, BL.
Occasionally.
Is that the people who are really suffering are not going to be taking these. The people who are really suffering are in our service jobs. They're in our, there are our essential workers, and they, probably are not going to benefit from this that much.
Well, don't sell them short. They may
I'm
be
not selling
able
them
to
short. I'm just
do
saying
that.
you need to. It is far easier for you and I to take this
Of course
course.
it is, but the American way is to try and make yourself better, and this is an opportunity for people who wouldn't have had a way to do it. I mean, you can be as cynical as you want, but a lot of people will get a lot out of these programs. I think more from Google, frankly, than from LinkedIn, because I'm not sure how many people who are in essential worker jobs are on LinkedIn, but everybody's on Google.
Yep. Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and you're not wrong, but there will be people who will benefit immensely from it, so I'm happy about it.
Good thing. That's why it's invest.
Yeah.
I have an awesome thing that we should probably especially this year, in every episode include something that will just make people smile.
Yes,
Because
for sure.
we all need that desperately, and this is one of those. This is from Mashable's Rachel Krause, who there's a guy named Robert Specker, who is the activities coordinator at it appears to be a long-term care facility in England called Sidmar Lodge. And so obviously long-term care residents are have been locked up for the past 4 months without the ability to have visitors. And so that's a pretty grim situation, especially for people for whom loneliness is a very, very real and present issue. So Robert Specker got creative and decided to host a photo shoot of the residents. And he did so very deliberately by fashioning the photo shoot around recreating iconic music album covers with the residents of this long-term care facility. So I shared them on Twitter, and we'll include them in the show notes. But there's an example of Adele 21, the album Adele 21, turns into Vera 98 with one of the residents posing in the exact same way that Adele is posing for her album cover, but it's Vera, who is 93 years old, and it has the same pose, except instead of Adele, it's Vera. It's the same typography as on the album cover, but instead of the name of the artist, it's the name of the resident. So there's one for Taylor Swift for a 1989 album. Born in the USA turns into Born in England. Queen 2, instead of the famous cover of the four heads of Queen with the lighting and the darkness all around them. Instead of Queen, it is the caretakers, the carers of the facility who are featured there. It's an Elvis Presley cover, The Clash, a hilarious Michael Jackson Bad cover, Johnny Cash, Blink-182, Madonna, David Bowie's Aladdin Sane is my favorite. It's an elderly woman who has the lightning strike paint on her face. It's just beautiful. So there's a quote from Specker in the article, who told the Jewish News that I did the project to make them happy, and I think the models' families have enjoyed it, even with grandchildren posting about their grandparents. But the risk of COVID means they could be in lockdown for a long time, and I want to make it a good time.
I loved these photographs, and I mean, what a brilliant idea, but also a lot of credit to the photography.
Oh, absolutely.
And the lighting and the costumes and the makeup.
The attention to detail for these is amazing.
Oh, the detail is spectacular. And speaking of attention to detail, somebody who could not have more of that in the most beautiful way possible is Michelle Obama. And she announced today that she's starting a podcast on Spotify on July 29th. And she'll be talking about relationships, and she's going to have her mother and friends and Shirley Barack. And frankly, I would listen if she was going to read her grocery list. I can't wait. I just can't wait.
Huge news. There are a lot of people who want her to be
Vice
chosen as vice
president.
president. There's a lot of people who want her to run for president.
She'd
And
have to be
apparently all of
nuts.
her insiders, all of the insiders who know her say there's not a chance in hell she would ever want to do
Why
either.
would she? They have been through hell for 8 years, and now they have a wonderful life. And, you know, why would she do that?
Her
You'd have to
husband just
be
got
nuts.
hacked. Why the hassle, right? No, but my sister, unprompted by me, said, you know, we were watching television together, and Michelle Obama was on doing something, and she's like, she should run for president.
Oh, I wish she would. I really do. I mean, she would win in a landslide, but, you know, the woman she earned her good life.
Yeah. So I think I've said probably more than a few times on this podcast that I don't subscribe to Hulu because why would I want to pay for advertising?
Yeah.
So it should come as a bit of irony here that I'm going to tout Hulu for their advertising. This is from an Adweek article by Kelsey Sutton, who reports that Hulu is now opening up a beta test of an ad manager to select small and medium-sized businesses. It's a self-service tool. The minimum spend is $500, presumably a month. It didn't say. So Hulu's going to slowly open up the ecosystem to more marketers over time. This is a test. Obviously, it's a beta. Interested advertisers can RSVP their companies and their companies' ads. The companies and the ads of those companies will be vetted through a process that Hulu already has in place for their advanced TV product. But one of the things with so much streaming going on, and people and you know, Netflix and Amazon Prime, now Disney Plus and Apple TV and Peacock just launched, blah blah blah. How do marketing messages get into that ecosphere? With Netflix, it's really tough, and you got to spend a lot of money to get into Netflix as an advertiser. Amazon has Amazon Direct, so there's a way of uploading your videos to it. And this is the other avenue, is getting in through a self-service advertise for small buck. You know, you can't, you know, not the huge corporations of the world who can afford to do it, but for small and medium-sized businesses.
Well, I like the fact, I like that it's small businesses. Yeah. I have a client who should do it. But, you know, there's also the question of how much can you watch? I mean, I'm getting ready to cancel my cable because I don't look at it, you know, and of course I've been saying that for years. But anyway, another sign of the times is, this is from an Ad Age article by Janine Poggi. I think that's how she says her name. The San Francisco ad agency, Traction, broke its lease last week because they said they don't need it. They don't need the space anymore. They're going to work indefinitely for the foreseeable future. And that's, you know, the COVID situation has had a horrific impact on the advertising industry. And so they're closing their office and they're shifting to everybody being at home. And the co-founder of the company is Adam Kleinberg. And he said, we decided we just don't need the office space. And he said the agency did not miss a beat. They got 6 new clients in 2020. And he said they have tools that they're using. One of them is Miro, a virtual whiteboard that lets the staff collaborate and brainstorm in real time. And, you know, given the changes in the industry, the agency had before COVID transitioned into more of a consulting format. And he says that's working for them. It's working for their clients. And we're going to see a lot more of this, a lot more of people not going back. And it's going to have, I think, the biggest impact on people starting their careers, coming out of school, starting their careers, trying to work their way into, you know, the field, and not having that sort of social thing and that mentoring thing and the coffee and the lunch and all of that. You know, virtual cocktails are nice, but they're not the same as going out for a beer. And so there will be changes, but, you know, better and better technology is going to make working from home better and better.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. This is another one. I think this particular story is going to stretch out longer than we intended it to, because there's a lot of things to talk about there. But it's like that what you said about the people entering the workforce. you learn to be, you learn to be a professional by being in the environment of being a professional, right?
Absolutely.
And I don't think that it's not something I thought about until you brought it up, but I don't know how you replace that with a virtual environment. I don't know how that works. I don't think it works as well, is my guess.
It can't, it just can't. I mean, that part of it is so important. And you kind of learn how people speak diplomatically. You kind of learn what's allowed and what's not. You learn from the people, you want to hang around in any part of your life with the people who are what you want to be. And so when you do that in a work environment, it's how you grow. And so it will be very interesting to see how this, but there's also another element. You live in a suburb. I live in a small New York apartment, but a lot of people live in tiny studios, or they live with roommates, or they have kids, and, it's hard. So people are going to have to find ways to deal with that. And nonetheless, the idea of commuting, the idea of being exposed to, illness and death is not going to make people rush back into office space, especially now that they're talking about air conditioning spreading the virus.
Yeah, well, I just started doing in face-to-face meetings with a limited number of clients, and in specific conditions. But I would not go to meet somebody in downtown Minneapolis or St. Paul in a high-rise in a skyscraper in a closed environment where there's a ton of people sitting with their air,
with the windows hermetically sealed.
So there's that. The other aspect of this is so there's that, and so I spoke with a woman at a global financial technology company who has been working from home exclusively since this began. And she said, the leadership of the company is stunned at how easily they transition to a completely digital workforce. Now it's a profession, it is an industry that can do that because they have the technical expertise to do it. But also it's an information age company. It's not manufacturing. It's not,
Well, exactly. And my sister is an economist, and she works for a large brokerage house, and they are working remotely because they can, because everybody basically is able to communicate the way we're doing it right now, and they're all, pretty much head down doing their specific area of but yeah, if you're doing something where you're making something, that makes it a lot more difficult. Yeah. So
not one more thought. I told you this was going to be a long one.
Okay, go ahead, David. Go ahead.
So the other thing that this story brought up was I'm convinced, I've been saying for years, that once a company gets like 150 people or more, you need to split it, cut it in half. Just
Absolutely.
Cut it in half. So that there's only the fewer an amount of people, the more accountability there is in an organization. And I've worked in huge corporations and I've worked in small agencies, and there are a hell of a lot of places for people to hide from accountability in huge organizations. And so what one of the effects might be is that there may be more accountability now that more people are working isolated from their colleagues, where they know the politics of how to get away with shit, or not be accountable to stuff.
That's definitely a part of it. And my sister was saying that at the beginning, somebody would call you every day, say, what are you going to be doing today? But now everybody's doing their thing, and it's working. It's working really beautifully. So this could have gone either way, and or are you going to tell us one?
Oh yeah, I got one. This is the latest news in the mask wearing.
Oh God!
I don't know what we call it, but that thing. This is from AP's Annie D'Oncenzio. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But so the big retailer, one of the big retailers in Minnesota, Target, has joined a growing list of major companies who are requiring now that customers wear masks. So the list includes Walmart is probably the most prominent. Best Buy, another Minnesota company, Kroger's, Kohl's, Starbucks, and now Target has joined that. The policy goes into effect August 1. They say that more than 80% of Target's 1,800 stores already require customers to wear masks due to local and state regulations. Minnesota is not one of those states, so we haven't imposed yet a statewide requirement by the governor of wearing masks outside. I expect that's going to change, but the significance of this is that corporations are now taking the leadership role in the pandemic because they realize that if we don't get our handle, if we don't deal with this, then they are going to be out of business.
Well, and there's no national leadership.
Yep.
So they have to do that.
Yeah.
But there are issues, there are a lot of issues. There's that crazy woman that went into Target and started throwing masks all over, yelling, "I'm wearing a $40,000 Rolex. How dare you fight with me?" And then there was a video from Costco where somebody else, this woman sat on the floor, this like 75-year-old woman sat on the floor and said, "It's my constitutional right not to wear a mask." And they're like, "Well, not here."
I went to Target today. So Chaska, Minnesota, is a conservative district. Home Depot, I go to there occasionally, and whenever I go there, practically nobody is wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Our Cub Foods, it's 75% people wearing masks, but there's people who don't. And then Target today, almost everybody was wearing a mask.
I'm glad to hear that.
I was curious to see what the effect would be. We'll see but I expect more eruptions of tantrums from people, and we'll see the videos, and it'll be ridiculous.
Oh my God. And then you have the governor of Georgia who said you can't make laws about wearing masks because he's a COVIDiot. Anyhow, this is about GoyaGate, which is just so ridiculous. And I have it in good because Chris Cuomo really, really let Trump have it. And the president posted a photo of himself with Goya products all around him at his presidential desk. The one that, what did he call it? The Resolute desk, whatever he called it. And he didn't want, so here he is, and he has his picture and thumbs up. And so what happened was that Goya's CEO last week kissed up to Trump and said the U.S. is truly blessed to have a president who's so wonderful and at this time. And here are Americans dying in droves, losing their jobs and their homes. And a word has yet to be said about Russian bounties on the killing of American soldiers. And here is the president, and he's hawking Goya. So Chris Cuomo just let him have it, and he used the word bullshit on live TV. And what happened when that speech was made by the president of Goya is Hispanics started a boycott. And so now it's been called GoyaGate and Goya Way and all sorts of horrible things. And it took Chris Cuomo to actually call him on it, and so CNN commentator Ana Navarro Cardenas tweeted, "When the vast majority of our customers are Latinos, you might expect a backlash from serving as a prop for a guy who puts brown children in cages, calls countries like El Salvador shitholes, denies Puerto Rican deaths, and calls Mexicans rapists and criminals." She said, "That's all I have to say."
So you said last week when I was talking about TikTok that it's all a distraction from the Russian.
Oh, absolutely.
Thing. Here's another one. So speaking of that, though, last week we talked about Trump saying he might ban TikTok from the U.S. Instagram, surprisingly enough. Owned by Facebook.
That's where he posted that picture, by the way.
Owned by Facebook is going to roll out a TikTok competitor. This is from The Verge's Jacob Casternakes. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but
we really need a producer to tell us this stuff.
So he reports that TikTok is or Instagram is prepared to launch a TikTok clone. in the United States and 50 other countries within weeks. Early August is the date. The feature is going to be called Reels, so Insta Reels. Instagram's attempt to clone TikTok like they clone everything else. They will have a 15-second limit apparently set to music, or users will be able to reuse audio from another person's video, as is commonly done on TikTok, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I thought the timing was interesting. Trump blusters about banning TikTok, and the next week, by the way, Instagram's going to coming out with a TikTok competitor. So last week we talked about how major tech companies were going to refuse or push back on China or Hong Kong requests for data on the protesters. This is coming from a Quartz article by Mary Hui, who reports that Apple is not one of them.
Oh God, really?
Last year, Apple, so she sets it up by saying last year Apple removed a real-time protest map app that was used by pro-democracy demonstrators in Hong Kong to organize. And this past weekend, more than 600,000 Hong Kong citizens voted in the opposition's primaries. It's an unofficial election, but it served as a protest against the city's national security law that has been imposed by China. The primary organizers had developed their own voting platform called Pop Vote. It is both an iOS and an Android app. The Android app was quickly approved by Google Play, but the iOS app was initially rejected, apparently because of several issues with the code. PopVote developers resubmitted the app with required changes in hours and never heard back from Apple, despite many attempts to contact the company. Edwin Chu is an IT advisor for the voting platform, is quoted in the article saying, "We think it's being censored by Apple." Apple has a significant interest in China. They're heavily dependent on China as both a market for their hardware, as well as manufacturing. Exactly. They regularly censored apps that appear in the Chinese App Store at the request of Beijing. In 2017, dozens of virtual private networks were censored. The Quartz app, this is Quartz article that I'm basing this on. The Quartz app was denied last year. And they've also removed the Taiwanese flag emoji from their keyboard for users in Hong Kong and Macau. So they're notably absent from these tech companies that are deciding to halt the processing of a data request from Hong Kong authorities. Apple's only reaction to that was that it was, quote unquote, assessing the impact of the new legislation. Aye. So that's why you detect some cynicism when we talk about Apple.
Well, okay. I don't want to argue with you, but that's a bad move on their part. So I have to explain this. I live in an apartment building with 300 apartments, and we all have to use the same laundry room, and we have to wear a mask and all of that. And I'm terrified of doing my laundry, so this appeals to me. This is called Spin Cycle, and it's a machine that washes your clothes while you ride your bike. It's actually meant for developing countries where people have to wash their clothes by hand. But it's totally cool. And each load takes about 10 minutes, so, I could go up to Central Park and do my laundry and come back.
So it's not a stationary bike. You can actually ride your bike.
You're riding
elsewhere.
Your actual bike. Yeah,
oh my God, that's
bike.
Brilliant,
isn't it? It's like it's a drum, and you put the water in it, and you put the clothes in it.
So it comes along with you. It's not like an app.
Yes, no, your bike, you're pedaling. Your pedaling makes it rotate so that the clothes get washed.
Yeah, well, it's not a tool just for developing countries. I mean, we fat Americans could
absolutely
use the exercise.
Well, the Americans, but I mean, we're riding bikes all over New York City now, and just to be able to do that, I mean, to be able to do your wash, because I do a lot of my wash by hand because I don't want to go to the laundry room.
Wow! Oh my God, that's horrible.
Great?
Yeah,
isn't that brilliant?
So I need to. So my shiny thing is something I discovered from the Twins broadcast that I talked about. So they were streaming the broadcast on the Fox Sports North website. I didn't check to see whether it was broadcast on TV because I needed to do work at the same time, which is why baseball is brilliant. You can watch it and do work at the same time. But anyway, it was on their website, and it was embedded on their website, and it was not a postage stamp size, but maybe a postcard size video, and you couldn't expand it. It drove me nuts. So I was like, I want to see this full screen, but I couldn't do it because there are no controls to do that. But anyway, I looked at the code because that's what I'm doing. I'm a geek, and the embed code was from a company called Streamable, and so this is the cool tool, Streamable. It's an HD video streaming platform, but I don't know if it's really called streaming because it doesn't appear that you can do live streaming on it. What you do is you upload your video to Streamable or plug in a URL. This is where it's really helpful, I think. Plug in a URL from like a YouTube video, and it will suck in the video, and then you can edit the video, edit the thumbnail. And so for our podcast, it would be a way for us to edit segments of the podcast easily through a web interface. Then you get a link to it and some embed code if you want to embed it. I've got an example we can embed on the show notes.
How much does it cost?
There's a free version. It has the restrictions are there's 90-day video retention. So it only saves videos for 90 days. It's ad-supported playback for popular videos. So mine had one view, which was me. So there weren't any ads on it. But if it gets popular, there would be some ads on it. It's HD streaming. There's a cap of 1 gigabytes or 10 minutes for your videos. So they're only 10-minute videos. But you can pay for an upgraded service. It's $9 a month. Permanent video storage, no ads. You can stream it 4K or Ultra HD, and there are no limits on your size or lengths.
That's very cool.
But this is from Neiman Lab, and Jessica Mahoney and Philip Napoli are the reporters on it, and they have mapped the locations of more than 400 hyperpartisan media outlets. So media in quotations, right? These are websites that are often funded and operated by government officials or political candidates, PACs, political party operatives, and they are found most frequently in swing states, but they're propaganda outlets basically. So it's we talked about in what was the last episode?
Yeah,
we talked about this hyperpartisan propaganda sites. They've got we'll embed this in the show notes. They've got a Google Map mashup of where all these hyperpartisan sites are located, so you can find them in your location. I did an eyeball test of it, and just from the overview, it looks like 98% of the sites in the U.S. are conservative. So they've got them red is conservative, blue is liberal or left-leaning. There are 0 left-wing sites in Minnesota or New York. I checked those out on the map. So it does appear to me, so the void that's being left by the closure of local newspapers is being filled by a strategic, tactical, and strategic effort by conservatives to provide local news that is also, partisan and propagandic.
Well, the issue that creates is that people don't vet their sources. And that's how all of the rumors and all of the memes and all of the ridiculous things spread.
Well, it's not even just vetting their sources, it's understanding what they're looking at.
Well, exactly.
It's media literacy 101.
Yeah, well, people don't have that, and it should be taught in kindergarten and on up, because it is really causing a huge rift in our society. And, I find it so upsetting that learned friends of mine, and I've been guilty too, have posted stuff that they didn't fact check. And, you feel really bad when you realize you did that, but sometimes it happens.
Yeah, we need a system for automatically doing that for us, because who has the time with the deluge of information that's sent our way?
Oh, it's outrageous. I mean, how are we to keep up with that?
Yeah.
You know, that's incredible. Besides, because we can't go through life and speed it up 3 times.
Yeah, well, I mean, you vet your sources at the source. You determine whether that source is credible and is going to give you legitimate information, and then you stick with those sources. That's my methodology.
Did you see this morning on Twitter? It was trending that the Lincoln Tunnel had flooded.
I didn't see that.
Oh, well, no, the Lincoln Tunnel, thank God, did not flood, although that's one of my worst nightmares. That there was a picture, and it turned out that it was from some guy's pool, I think, and he was sitting in a
flooded?
beach chair. Yeah, well, no, it was the water coming in, and the way he took the picture, it looked like a tunnel, but there were like 13,000 tweets about it before 9 o'clock, like, oh my God, the Lincoln Tunnel is flooded.
Well, I'm glad it didn't.
Me too. I'm never going there again.
I have a pro tip. This is we discussed this on this concept on episode 299, but in relation to Gmail. So we talked about how Gmail, you can, with Gmail accounts, you can create throwaway email address. You know, any number of email addresses.
I do that all the time, thanks to you. I love those.
Yeah, it's the best.
But there are some sites that won't allow it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they say that's not a real email address.
Okay.
And
so
there's
like they won't allow the info at email address is the same thing they're looking for now is the okay.
Well, they say we want a work email, so they want a real email. Yeah. But you know, I don't want them.
So this is Microsoft is now allowing users of Office 365. This is from Tech Radar's Joel Khalili is how I found out about it. But Microsoft users of Office 365 are going to be able to do the same thing. As many custom disposable email addresses as your heart desires. The practice, I didn't know this before, the practice apparently is called sub-addressing or plus addressing. So sub-addressing like a subdomain, I imagine, or plus addressing because that's the character that used to separate the two. But what you do is you actually can already do this in Hotmail. Didn't know that either, but last time I logged into my Hotmail account was I can't remember. But so if your domain, let's just say my address is David at outlook.com. It's not. For the record, don't email me. It's not, but just for sake of argument, my address is david@outlook.com. I would do, if I wanted to subscribe to our newsletter, I would do David +BSmedia@outlook.com, and that would be a on the fly email address I created to subscribe to our newsletters. All of the emails would go to your main inbox, but then from there you can create filters to siphon off into out of sight, out of mind until you want to look at it.
And also you find out who's sharing your email address because it comes from there.
That's the most beneficial part of it.
But I have to tell you, back in the day when there were phone books, I wanted an unlisted number, but you had to pay for an unlisted number, but it was free if you wanted to list the number in somebody else's, in your kid's name or whatever. So I would list my phone number in my dog or my cat's name. And I had my phone listed as Sarah McGillicuddy. And at least a couple times a year, I'd be able to answer the phone. Oh, I'm so sorry. She's in the litter box. I'm sorry, she's chasing a mouse.
I would have done like Shaggy or Spot.
But it was fun. It was great fun. And one time my dog got invited to join the Republican Party, and I sent it to the Daily News. I sent them the invite, and they published it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So this is sort of a fun way to do that online.
So this is the pandemic's effect on small business ownership. This is from the National Bureau of Economic Research. And it is the coronavirus impact of the decrease in U.S. small business ownership, and it's by demographic. And so the way to read this is, it breaks it out by gender, race, ethnicity, and citizenship. Gender, 20% of males dropped between April and between February and April. So the number of owners of small businesses who are males dropped 20%. between February and April of this year. 25% for females. In the race ethnicity, it was 17% for whites, 26% for Asian Americans, 32% for Latinx, and 41% for African Americans.
Wow.
So devastation among small businesses is brutal for non-white audiences. Citizenship numbers are 18% for U.S. born and 36% for immigrants. And you know what? That's where most of our small business, that's where most of our business growth comes from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, you know, I was walking along 3rd Avenue just this morning, and there's an entire block that they're all gone. An entire block of small businesses. You know, it breaks your heart. And what has been going out of business for the longest time is dry cleaners, because people don't wear suits and ties and white shirts to work anymore. And now the nail salons are disappearing, because who's going to go in there and spend an hour getting a mani-pedi? And, you know, those are all immigrant owned. And there's devastation in New York. It's really awful.
Well, it's just not. It's not New York, and it's not just. I mean, it is. It hurts most. The effects are most dire among those who least can afford it. Immigrants,
absolutely,
minority-owned businesses, and everything. But there are huge sectors of our society, of our business, our economy, that are being hit regardless of what the demographics of that. The restaurant industry, all of our, the things that give our lives richness, going out to restaurants and meeting with friends, happy hour, concerts, dancing. All of those things, dancing, nightclubs, all of that stuff is, who knows whether it's going to come back.
Theater.
Yeah.
Movies, I mean,
we don't have a plan to deal with it.